So far I've done 2 single pickup shootouts on my channel. The first one was this upgraded Squier Esquire against a Gibson Les Paul Junior tribute, which in my opinion was won by the Squier, and the second one was this Gibson Les Paul Junior against an Epiphone Firebird I, which in my opinion was won by the Les Paul Junior. In both cases I only kept the winners, but I also got an SG Junior this year that I've been looking for over 2 years. So first I want to shoot that out against my Les Paul Junior, and in the end I want to shoot out the winner against my Esquire to see who the current champion is in my household regarding single pickup guitars. I'm going to start simple with these guitars, going through a Marshall Plexi with everything wide open. This is not how I would usually use these guitars, but it will give us a fair baseline of how these guitars sound without playing with any of the controls. The first thing I notice here is that the Les Paul Junior sounds a bit more mellow, but I have to mention here that I upgraded the stock bridge to a compensated brass bridge on the Les Paul Junior, while the SG Junior is stock as far as I know, but stock they also come with different bridges, so that difference will be there nonetheless. But like I said, I usually wouldn't use both guitars like this. On Juniors I like to dial back the tone control to around 7, so let's do that and continue the playing. On the recording it sounds to me like the Les Paul is a bit more balanced while the SG has more snarling mids. But now let's dial back the volume and build up from there and see how both guitars handle that. Although I set the volume parts the same on both guitars, you can still hear that the SG retains more volume and body while cleaning up. But I also noticed while playing that the SG has a bit more output, which is probably because the pickup is sitting closer to the strings than on the Les Paul. This output difference isn't coming through in the clips as much as I was experiencing it in the room while playing. In the next part I'll use an overdrive with the Les Paul Junior to give it a little kick to get it closer to the SG. might have been a little bit too much with the overdrive on the Les Paul, but it brought them a bit closer together while retaining the original character in comparison. The Les Paul is a bit fatter and smoother, while the SG has that mid-range that pokes through. But let's turn it around. I will use the Les Paul Junior how I would normally use it and without a drive pedal, and I will dial back the volume and tone controls on the SG Junior to get it a bit closer to the Les Paul. This brings them a lot closer, although the SG keeps having its own distinct mid-range character. In the room, I slightly preferred the SG, which I think is down to the fact that it has more output to saturate my playing, giving me more range on the controls, but also because it's very lightweight, resonant, and altogether just a very lively guitar. But listening back to the videos and editing, I might prefer the Les Paul, and that guitar has a great neck shape and feels very sturdy without being too heavy. Both are great, but both are different. For me, you could call this a draw, but because I picked the SG as the winner from playing in the room, I will put that one head to head with my Esquire. I just have to cut in here from the future because it bothered me in editing that the SG Junior felt nicer to play in the room, where the Les Paul Junior actually sounded better in the recordings. And the main difference, like I already mentioned, was the pickup height. Now you cannot raise a dog ear P90 pickup without using a shim, so I ordered a few from Lawler and I raised the pickup height on the Les Paul Junior and I recorded some clean and dirty parts again, so let's hear how that sounds. They feel and sound a lot closer to play in the room now, because the output is almost the same and the knobs react accordingly. So I think the shims are worth it, and I think I like the Les Paul Junior just a bit better, but they are different and I think they work different for different things. But let's continue to the rest of the video that I recorded before. They both rock, just with a totally different vibe. Let's see how it plays out if we get a bit cleaner. As you could hear, the Esquire starts to thin out here, even though I dialed back the tone and volume quite a lot. And I do notice a difference in build quality because everything was much harder to play on the Squier, even though both guitars are set up quite the same, but the Squier does have a thinner gauge of strings on it. All of this means nothing without context, and by this point I feel like we're comparing apples against oranges. So let's throw both in a mix and let them fight it out in a solo duel. I think the Esquire is easier to keep in tune and it has a very specific character. And although I think you can do a lot with it, it will not work for everything. Whereas the SG Junior can be a bit more versatile and cover more ground in my opinion. Plus, it simply plays better, so if I would have to pick one, it would be the SG Junior. But honestly, I think there are no losers here, because I think all three of them are great guitars. The Esquire is still my cheapest guitar, even though I did a lot of upgrades to it, and after making this third shootout, I'm not planning on selling any of these three. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're down there, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you next time.